December 23rd, 2010. A bone-chilling night in Iowa. A security camera at a convenience store catches a man in a hooded sweatshirt buying something mundane. A hot dog. And a single hot lotto ticket. Just one slip. Weeks later, that exact slip hits the $16.5 million jackpot. Then the true mystery begins. Nobody claims it. The money just sits. A ghost fortune. Investigators, puzzled, eventually freeze-frame that grainy video. They zoom, they enhance, and they realize the man buying the ticket isn't a shadowy drifter or a mob courier. He's the lottery's own cybersecurity director. What followed was the unraveling of one of the greatest insider frauds in history. It was a story of one USB stick, 8 lines of malicious code, and $24 million siphoned over 6 years. This wasn't a standard bank heist or a phishing attack. This was the manipulation of pure probability. It's the closest anyone has ever come to hacking chance itself. Today, we dive into the chilling mechanics of the Tipton case. How do you hack a random number generator built to be unbreakable, and what does this cybercrime documentary tell us about the vulnerabilities hidden in the most secure systems? Our story begins with Eddie Tipton. By day, he was the Information Security Director at the Multi-State Lottery Association (MUSL) in Iowa. He was the guardian, responsible for safeguarding the very random number generators RNGs that picked the winning numbers across multiple states. He was trusted, respected, and even helped build some of these systems himself. But Tipton had a secret obsession. According to colleagues, he was fascinated, perhaps unnervingly so, with rootkits. For those unfamiliar, a rootkit is a kind of stealthy program. It burrows deep into a computer's operating system, hiding itself while giving the hacker total control. It can perform any task, and crucially, it can be programmed to self-destruct, leaving virtually no digital trace. It's the digital equivalent of a ghost. And Tipton, the man in charge of preventing malware, was obsessed with the tools of the trade. This obsession became reality on November 20th, 2010. Late one night, Tipton enters the highly secure Hot Lotto draw room. He claims it's routine maintenance, adjusting the computer clock for daylight savings. Access logs confirm his authorization. But Tipton, the system's architect, knew exactly where the weak points were. The cameras that normally recorded every second suddenly began capturing only 1 frame a minute a gap Tipton himself had silently programmed. In those precious blind gaps, alone with the dual computers that generated millions of dollars, Tipton inserted a USB drive. This wasn't a sloppy phishing attack or a brute force effort. This was an elegant, insidious, surreptitious installation. He was slipping a custom-built rootkit, a tiny, invisible DLL file into the RNG software. A few extra lines of code that would change lottery history forever. The genius of Tipton's cybercrime lay in its subtlety. Most financial fraud is loud, a massive data breach, or a flurry of illegal transactions. Tipton's was silent. His secret code sat dormant most of the time, doing absolutely nothing, making it truly impossible to notice during standard security checks. It was ticking away, waiting for 3 highly specific conditions to align. First, the drawing had to fall on one of only 3 pre-selected dates each year: May 27th, November 23rd, or December 29th. Second, the drawing had to fall on a Wednesday or a Saturday. Third, the draw had to be held after a certain time in the evening. Meet all 3 conditions, and the rootkit quietly springs to life. It hijacks the RNG, bypassing the true randomness. Instead of generating a truly random result, it executes a preordained, predictable algorithm. Tipton, knowing the mathematics behind this secret algorithm, knew exactly what numbers it would spit out. And once the deed was done, once the predictable numbers were generated, the rootkit would self-delete. No files, no logs, no digital fingerprints. It was designed to be the perfect inside hack. The trap was set. December 29th, 2010. Drawing night. Tipton's rootkit had been lying in wait. At 8:00 p.m., the draw met all his secret conditions. The The random number generator never stood a chance. The outcome was decided weeks earlier by the man in charge of guarding the system. Now, Tipton faced his final, and most challenging, hurdle, claiming the prize without exposing himself. As a lottery employee, he was legally barred from playing or winning. Claiming the money under his own name was simply out of the question. 2 hours before the rigged drawing, Tipton executed his desperate plan. Disguised in that hooded sweatshirt and a cap, even wearing gloves to avoid fingerprints. A move often seen in low-level internet mysteries, where anonymity is paramount, he bought the ticket. He manually selected the exact numbers his rootkit was about to win. He even bought a hot dog. A strange, almost too casual detail that would later be used against him in court. The next morning, the $16.5 million winner was announced. But Tipton had no way to claim it. He schemed with a small circle of confidants to use proxies, people with no obvious ties to him, to cash the ticket. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. As the one-year deadline loomed, the mystery winner's absence made headlines. This delay is common in dark web scams and international financial fraud, where identity is the weakest link. Finally, just weeks before the ticket expired, an intermediary called the Iowa Lottery, claiming the ticket was owned by an offshore shell corporation. This corporation was Hexam Investments Trust, based in Belize. This was the first massive red flag. Legitimate winners rarely go through an offshore trust to hide their identity. This smell of complex, international financial fraud was what tipped investigators off. Like many cybercrimes that use crypto or complex money laundering, the fraud always trips up at the point of cashing out. Iowa denied the claim no name, no payout. The $16 million was eventually forfeit. Unclaimed. Someone chose to burn a fortune rather than reveal the identity of the person behind the mask. The forfeited jackpot triggered the investigation. They traced the offshore trust, leading them to a man in Quebec, and then, crucially, to a businessman in Texas, Robert Rhodes, a known associate of Eddie Tipton. The pieces of the conspiracy were starting to align, but the real breakthrough came when they went back to Tipton's system. Remember that self-deleting rootkit? On one machine, it failed to self-delete. For the first time, investigators had the blueprint. They saw the hard-coded conditions: May 27th, November 23rd, December 29th, the magic dates. This forensic discovery turned one local case into a massive, multi-state conspiracy. Authorities across the country began looking back at their lottery records on those exact dates. The results were jaw-dropping. In Colorado, 2005, a jackpot on one of Tipton's magic dates. The winner, Eddie's own brother, Tommy Tipton. In Wisconsin, 2007, another jackpot on December 29th. The winner, an LLC controlled by that same associate, Robert Rhodes. And in Oklahoma, 2011, a $1.2 million hit on November 23rd, won by a Texas friend of Tipton's. In total, 5 states were implicated: Iowa, Colorado, Wisconsin, Oklahoma, and Kansas. That meant 6 rigged jackpots, amounting to roughly $24 million in tampered prize money. Tipton's very position gave him away. Who else would know the variables to rig the system so precisely? This wasn't just a betrayal. It was a profound failure of cybersecurity protocols, where the insider threat was the most severe risk of all. It's a classic lesson in system security: trust cannot replace validation. Eddie Tipton was ultimately sentenced to 25 years in prison, though he only served about 5 years before being paroled. His story stands as a frightening reminder that if a system designed to be perfectly random can be gamed, imagine the vulnerabilities in the digital services you use every day. The Eddie Tipton case offers some crucial, practical lessons in fighting digital threats and financial fraud that you can apply immediately. Let's start with the principle of least privilege. Tipton had administrator access to the RNG machines, far more access than he should have had for routine maintenance. You should apply this principle to your own digital life. Check the permissions on your accounts. Do your apps need access to your location, your microphone, or your contacts? If not, revoke those permissions. Limit the power any single app or person has over your sensitive data. Next, Let's talk about multi-factor authentication, or MFA. Tipton needed physical access, the code, and a proxy to succeed. Imagine if the RNG software also required a second, randomized authentication key. Stop relying on passwords alone. Use MFA on every critical account: banking, email, social media. This is your single best defense against phishing attacks and password breaches. Lesson 3. The threat is inside the system. Tipton was the trusted insider. Similarly, many major phishing attacks use internal email systems after a single account is breached, making the scam look legitimate to your colleagues. Be skeptical of emails, even from internal sources, asking for sensitive data or sudden money transfers. If a client or colleague asks you to wire money or click a link, always verify the request through a secondary, known method, like a phone call or a separate instant message. Do not simply hit reply. Finally, let's consider hardware and software integrity. The system Tipton exploited was compromised because of a single point of failure and a self-deleting file that was missed. Keep your operating systems, browsers, and security software updated religiously. Updates contain patches that stop rootkits and other malware from gaining a foothold. Use reputable anti-malware software that can flag suspicious files, even if they are trying to hide as a legitimate system file. Eddie Tipton tried to hack probability and almost got away with $24 million, but the greatest flaw in his perfect system wasn't the code. It was the human greed that compelled him to use his knowledge for crime. The complexity of his cybercrime documentary is fascinating, but the simplicity of his downfall, that single, careless appearance on camera, is a chilling reminder that no digital ghost can hide forever. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive. If you enjoyed unpacking this massive fraud and learning how to protect yourself from the next digital threat, hit that like button and subscribe to the Digital Sleuth. For more stories at the intersection of tech, true crime, and cybersecurity, stay safe out there and stay vigilant. I'm the Digital Sleuth, and I'll see you in the next investigation.